Please don't stop itself. Okay, welcome. Sorry that took so long. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 2. And sorry and apologize that a limited number of viewers can watch, but this is because YouTube crew just decided to mess up again. Thinking this helps people grow, but it's not. It's literally what their document says. We're helping small people grow. It's not. It's not. Limiting the number of people is not going to help someone grow. And it's not going to stop negativity either. Keep in mind, this is a 13-plus website, to be honest with you. It's in its terms of service. Stop acting like it's a 12 and under site. Golden's talking, I guess. So, anyways, welcome to Huge Esports. Or not Huge Esports. Frick, wrong thing. Huge Sports Talk. Season 2, Episode 2. I don't like streaming on this platform, but we're going to do it for Flex. So let's talk about all the teams in the NFL first, as a bunch of things has happened, starting in ABC order. Arizona Cardinals. This week, they ended up, they lost to the Seattle Seahawks. Wow, what do you look at that? How does the Cardinals lose to the Seahawks? I don't know. Every time there's some team that gets good towards the middle of the season, they ended up sucking in the end. Maybe it's because their weakness has been found and now they're being destroyed. And it looks like they're apparently going to play against the Rams in the divisional round. Might be a good game to watch. Moving on, Atlanta Falcons lost to the New Orleans Saints. He says, look what I said. It says, every time I go in your stream, you get coins, ? I didn't really notice a change in coins, I don't think. So, yeah, and with that said, the Atlanta Falcons were eliminated a while ago. So, their playoff chances are dead. Baltimore Ravens. 6 losses in a freaking row. How can this team fail just like that? Well, they've faced several injuries throughout their season, and now they lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers to get eliminated from playoff contention. Maybe next season, Baltimore fans. Moving on to Buffalo. They won against the Jets. Of course they win against the Jets. Who wouldn't win against the Jets? Winning against the Jets is, going to help their chances. They play the New England Patriots in the divisional round. Wait, that cannot be right. That has to be the wild card round. The divisional round is only scheduled for the Titans and the Packers as of right now. So maybe when it says that, it means wild card. I think there's a typo in that. Carolina Panthers. Eliminated, of course, after 7 losses in a row. This next one comes from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, of course, Carolina's been mediocre, except towards the beginning of the season where they actually won 3 games. But those were weaker teams. And now they're out. Moving on to Chicago. A loss to the Minnesota Vikings. This team went from kind of good to even worse. Especially with their choices this offseason. or this last off season. Hopefully this next one they do better. Moving on to the city of Cincinnati, they lose their last game to the Cleveland Browns. However, they will play against the Las Vegas Raiders in the playoffs in the wild card round. I don't know why it says divisional. It's not divisional week. Moving on to the Browns, they are eliminated. And this time they got the win over the Cincinnati Bengals. However, they still have a long offseason to wait before really doing anything. Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys have made the playoffs already, and now they took care of the Philadelphia Eagles. And they will play the San Francisco 49ers in the first round of the playoffs. Well, can they win? Maybe. They're most likely probably going to win. Denver Broncos lost to the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, of course of course you've seen that coming. Not many teams lose to the Chiefs. I mean, not many teams win against the Chiefs other than the Bengals of what I've seen. Moving on to Detroit. Isn't it suspicious that the Detroit Lions are able to beat the Green Bay Packers and the Arizona Cardinals in a single season? It's kind of sus that they're just losing all the time at this point. It's kind of like they are intentionally losing to get first-round picks. That's what it kind of seems like. If they're caught doing this, then a draft lottery is going to definitely be in place for sure. But as for you, Detroit fans, you got a long ways to go before you are going to even get close to rebuilding your team all the way back to full strength. Green Bay Packers. Next game was a loss to Detroit. What an embarrassment for this team to just lose to the Detroit Lions. The best team is not supposed to lose to the worst team, but in this scenario, it does. As that's what happens. Now, the Green Bay Packers have made the playoffs and will be in the divisional round. It doesn't say who its opponent is yet. But whatever the lowest remaining seed of the playoffs left will take on the Green Bay Packers. Houston Texans. Oh my freaking gosh. This team is so bad that they haven't won a single game in the last 2 weeks. Well, that's a couple of teams. But look at the losing streak in the regular of the season. 8. And now they lost, of course, to the Tennessee Titans, but that was a close game, surprisingly. And they were the first team to get eliminated out of the playoff contention in the entire season. That's how bad that was. Moving on to Indianapolis. How do you lose your playoff chances to the Jaguars? I'm sorry if you're an Indianapolis Colts fan, but this is stupid. How the heck did you lose to one of the worst teams in the AFC and get eliminated from the playoffs because of it? All they had to do was win and they're in. And look what they do. They don't win and they get eliminated. Moving on. Jacksonville. After all the losses, they finally got a win against the Indianapolis Colts with a big win against them. However, they embarrassed the living daylights out of the Colts that day. But they still got a long ways to think before getting ready for next season. Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs now took care of the Broncos as of this week and will face the Pittsburgh Steelers in the wild card round. As it was a rough ride for some teams, but not for Kansas City. Moving on to Las Vegas. The Las Vegas Raiders have beaten the Los Angeles Chargers, almost resulted in a tie. But it didn't. So they will take on the Cincinnati Bengals in the divisional round, or not divisional, the wild card round for the fight of the death. Moving on, the Chargers. They had a chance to make the playoffs too, and they blew it by losing to the Raiders. So now they're going to have to wait another season to get back into playoff range, if they're still good by the time. Moving on to the Rams. The Rams did not take care of San Francisco. However, they've already clinched the playoffs as of last couple of weeks. Their opponent in the first round is the Arizona Cardinals. Moving on, the Dolphins. After such a fantastic start, they failed miserably, and they did, however, take care of the Patriots. But the Dolphins, well, they were eliminated, I believe, at the beginning of this week, of Week 18, and now have to wait another postseason. They have to wait another offseason because their team simply didn't have enough wins, despite the number of wins they had. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 wins. And yeah, moving on, Vikings. The Vikings did take care of the Bears. However, they were eliminated a while back. Maybe they can work something out to get ready for the playoffs for next year, if they get there. Moving on to the Patriots, who lost to the Dolphins. Again, because I believe they lost to them last season, right? Oh no, they lost to the Dolphins twice this season. However, the Dolphins still didn't make the playoffs despite sweeping the Patriots this season. Moving on to the next city, I don't know what to make a topic on for that. Moving on for the Saints took care of the Atlanta Falcons, and yet they still get eliminated. Moving on to the New York Giants. Let's just say you guys were eliminated a while ago, and now you lost to the Washington football team, for crying out loud. Question, when is Huge Awards? As soon as I can get it finished. The Washington football team ended up losing their playoff chances, but the Giants still didn't beat them. Moving on to the Jets. Maybe they'll be good next year, because there's a legend that always goes through the season after the season where your quarterback plays its first season of a draft is the next season to be good. So in other words, 2 years after you draft your quarterback, then that will be your good season. So maybe next season, the Jets will be good. But they did lose to the Bills. Next up is the Philadelphia Eagles, who have made the playoffs now. This time, however, they lost to the Dallas Cowboys. I'm getting there. They play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for a crazy game. If they win, that will be a huge upset, and a lot of people will be happy because a lot of people, for some reason, don't like Tom Brady. Probably because he's a Patriot. He was a former Patriot who won like 6 Super Bowls, and now has won a 7th one as well. Pittsburgh Steelers. Their win against the Ravens and the game that didn't result in a tie ended up helping the Steelers get to the playoffs. However, they have a long road ahead, especially next year, because next year they will not have Ben Roethlisberger anymore. So expect them to draft a quarterback in the draft this year. However, they play the Chiefs in the first round, so it's not going to be an easy ride for them. San Francisco 49ers took care of the Rams this week and is also going to the playoffs. They will be playing the Cowboys for an interesting game. Seattle, skedaddle, skadoodle. The Seattle Seahawks have been eliminated a while ago after losing constant games. However, they did beat the Cardinals, who were the best team in the league. Now they're not. Moving on to the Buccaneers, who have won against the Carolina Panthers, which the Panthers aren't really that strong. And they will play the Philadelphia Eagles in the playoffs. Maybe an easy game. However, it's supposed to rain on that day. Titans. Their win over Houston is very easy and helped them secure the number 1 seed in the AFC. However, the Texans did not really do anything. They tried to win, but they didn't win. So the Titans fought through and won. And the final team in the NFL is the Washington football team, who won against the Giants. So they finally get a win over something. However, they didn't get in the playoffs. Now, speaking of the playoffs, here are the games and the times. You got 6 of them. For the first time ever, there will be a wild card round on a Monday. For some strange reason. And for another strange reason is that Saturday... Am I almost done with what? The Huge Awards? Yeah, I'm getting close. And another strange thing is there's now going to be football on a Saturday, which is very rare. Usually it's only on 3 days. Thursdays, Sundays, and Mondays. Moving on to the next major sport. Oh my goodness. Don't even talk about it. This league is dying because no one is taking care of business when it comes to negotiations between the Major League Baseball and the Major League Baseball Players Association. As they're currently in an MLB lockout, and if they don't release soon, preseason games will start being canceled. So they got to figure out something or nothing is going to get happening. However, here's the positions from last season. Then, of course, you got this year's bracket of the NFL as well. Who will win it all and win the Super Bowl this year? It's one of these 14 teams. Moving on to the next major sport, the National Basketball Association. Starting with the Hawks. This week in sports ball, in the regular season of January, anywhere from the 7th, or no, 11, from the 4th to now, the Hawks have lost 2 of their 3 games they played in this period. They won against the Kings, but lost to the Lakers and the Clippers. Meaning they will have to do something else if they want to win. Celtics won 2 of their 4 games in this period. They've lost to the Spurs, who are not that good. They've lost to the Knicks, who are also not that good. But then again, won against the Knicks the very next day, or the very next game, and then won against the Pacers. So it's a mix of this for them. Brooklyn Nets. They won against the Pacers, however they lost to the Bucks. But that's because the Bucks were really, really good last season. They did beat the Spurs, but then also lost to the Portland Trail Blazers, which they're not too good either. Hornets. For this period, they've won all 3 of their games, beating the Detroit Pistons and beating the Milwaukee Bucks twice. So that helps their chances a lot. Chicago Bulls. They've won only 1 game out of their 2 games they've won. They won against the Washington Wizards, but lost to the Dallas Mavericks. Cleveland Cavaliers. In this period, they've lost to the Memphis Grizzlies, beat the Portland Trail Blazers, lost to the Warriors, and won against the Kings. They got to beat powerful teams if they want to win. So they got to use their strategies to win. Dallas Mavericks. In this period, they've won all 3 of their games, beating the Golden State Warriors, beating the Houston Rockets, and the Chicago Bulls. So they're on a roll for now. Detroit. Let's just say you need serious work on your team. However, they won 2 of their 4 games, which is better than what I thought they were going to do. Because I only thought they were going to only win 1. They lost to the Hornets and the Grizzlies. However, they won against the Rockets and the Jazz. The most impressive in this period is beating the Utah Jazz, as they're really good too. Golden State Warriors won 1 of their last 3 games, so it's a loss for this period. They lost to the Mavericks, and they also lost to the Pelicans, which should be an embarrassment because the Pelicans aren't that good either. But they did take care of the Cavaliers. Moving on to the Rockets. The Rockets have won only 1 game, and however, they upset the Washington Wizards with their win against them. However, they lost to the Dallas Mavericks, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and the Philadelphia 76ers. So maybe they still got a lot of work to do before they actually start clinching anything. Pacers lost 3 of their 4 games this week. They lost to the New York Knicks, lost to the Brooklyn Nets, and lost to the Boston Celtics. However, they've beaten the Utah Jazz, so that kind of redeems themselves slightly. Los Angeles Clippers lost 2 of their last 3 games. They've lost to the Phoenix Suns, they've lost to the Memphis Grizzlies, however, they won against the Atlanta Hawks. So maybe they have a whiles to go. Well, not as many people. Well, there's a certain capacity. I don't know what the capacity is. Los Angeles Lakers let's just say they did good. They beat the Kings and the Hawks. However, they lost to the Grizzlies somehow. So maybe they need to work on their skills before the playoffs begin. The Grizzlies have got a perfect week this week as they won all 4 of their games this week, beating the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Detroit Pistons, the Los Angeles Clippers, and the Los Angeles Lakers. So the Memphis Grizzlies are on a roll this time. Miami Heat. Let's just say they only played 2 games. They won against the Portland Trail Blazers and the Phoenix Suns. But get ready, there's more work for them too. The Bucks lost 3 of their last 4 games. They lost to the Toronto Raptors, they lost to the Charlotte Hornets twice. However, they beat the Brooklyn Nets in this period. Minnesota Timberwolves have won all 3 of their games this week, beating the Oklahoma City Thunder twice and beating the Houston Rockets. However, those 2 teams are not that good. So Minnesota might still need work. Pelicans. The Pelicans have lost 2 of their 3 games this week. They lost to the Suns and the Raptors. However, they beat the Warriors, so that helps them redeem themselves, even though the strength of their team is not that good. Knicks have won 3 of their last 4 games, beating the Pacers, the Celtics, and the Spurs. However, they lost to the Celtics once in this period too. The Thunder have lost all 3 of their games this week, losing to the Minnesota Timberwolves twice and losing to the Nuggets. So they got a lot of work to do. The Orlando Magic have lost all 3 of their games this week, losing to the Philadelphia 76ers, the Detroit Pistons, and the Washington Wizards. So Orlando is going to need the most work out of everybody in the league because they have lost several countless games. Like, look at December and look at November. They lost several. Philadelphia 76ers have won all 3 of their games in this week, beating the Rockets, the Spurs, and the Rockets. Oh, wait, I'm thinking of the wrong league when I see Orlando. It's actually the Magic. I was thinking the Access Football. Phoenix Suns have won two games in the last 3 games. They've won against the Pelicans and the Clippers, but lost to the Heat, even though their own team is built up of Heat, called the Suns. Trailblazers had a tie this week. They lost to the almost said the Dolphins. They've lost to the Heat and the Cavaliers. However, they won against the Kings and the Nets. For the Kings, well, this week they've played 5 games and lost all 5 of them, losing to the Lakers, the Hawks, the Nuggets, Trailblazers, and the freaking Cavaliers. Losing 5 games in a row is a huge embarrassment. And they probably need to get their work together. The Spurs. They played 5 games as well, and they've lost 4 of them. They lost to the Raptors, they lost to the 76ers, they lost to the Nets, and then lost to the Knicks. However, they won against the Boston Celtics. Toronto Raptors. Way to go for you, Toronto fans, as you guys won all 4 games this week, beating the Spurs, the Bucks, the Jazz, and the Pelicans. Maybe the city of Toronto is getting back into basketball again. Utah Jazz. This week, they've lost 3 games, They won against the Nuggets. However, they lost to the Raptors, the Pacers, and even the Pistons. They need to get back into their senses because we know Utah is not a bad team. And finally, the Washington Wizards, who have lost 2 of their 3 games this week. They lost to the Rockets, surprisingly. They lost to the Bulls, which is not surprising. And however, they beat the Magic, which is not surprising as well. And for the standings, as you can see, the top 10 make the playoffs. Top 6 will clinch the actual series. However, 7th through 10th will clinch a play-in tournament, which this league does for some reason. As you can see, here's your rankings, and then you got the teams that are not in that range. Moving on in the West, and you got the Kings back out of that range again. They were in it, now they're out of it. Moving on to the next league, the National Hockey League, where hockey is great. At least for some teams who don't get COVID, as this league is known for getting COVID for some reason. Let's start talking about hockey now. Starting with the Ducks. The Ducks have taken care of the Flyers, the Red Wings, and beat the Red Wings again. However, they lost to the Rangers. But overall, the Red Wings are actually not that bad this year. They were worse last year, but now they're pretty good again. So maybe they won't be too bad. Coyotes. This week, they lost to the Winnipeg Jets and the Nashville Predators. And embarrassed the Chicago Blackhawks this week, though. But the Blackhawks weren't that good either, so the Coyotes need the most work out of everybody. Boston Bruins. They've won against 3 teams this week. However, they lost to the Minnesota Wild, but they beaten the New Jersey Devils, Tampa Bay Lightning, and the Washington Capitals this week. So the Bruins are back on their winning ways once again. Buffalo. What have you done this time? This time, you lost to the Sharks. However, Buffalo has never been good every year. And the game against the Montreal Canadiens has been postponed because maybe due to COVID. Let me find that information out. It looks like the Montreal Canadiens have COVID. So does the Sabres. But because of the number of players from the Montreal Canadiens, the Buffalo Sabres couldn't play their game. So all thanks to the Canadiens for getting COVID again, they don't get to play. Calgary Flames. This week, the Calgary Flames had lost several games. This week, they've lost to the Florida Panthers, the Tampa Bay Lightning, and the Carolina Hurricanes. However, because of COVID, their game against the Islanders is postponed. And is it this team? No, it looks like the Islanders have COVID now. Is that true? It's only one dude. Why did they have to postpone the whole day? So maybe it was Calgary that caused this issue. So whoever knows, nobody knows who caused that pandemic in Calgary. Carolina Hurricanes. Out of their games, they played only 2 of the 3 games that they were supposed to play this week because one of them was postponed due to COVID. They played against the Calgary Flames, won that. They lost to the Florida Panthers, which is, well, surprising. However, the Philadelphia game got canceled, got postponed. And it is because of the Flyers getting COVID. So it's not your fault this time, Carolina. Chicago Blackhawks. This week, they've lost 2 of their 3 games. They lost to the Colorado Avalanche, to the Arizona Coyotes. So, yeah, losing to the Coyotes means you're probably not going to make the playoffs because you can't be serious, right? And then, however, they won against the Las Vegas Golden Knights, who are known to be a golden team, if you know what I mean. Colorado Avalanche won all 4 of their games this week, beating the Chicago Blackhawks, the Winnipeg Jets, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and the Seattle Kraken, who the Seattle Kraken are new, but they're not good this year. Moving on to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Looks like there's a postponed game on this list again. They lost to the Lightning, they lost to the Devils, but then after that, they beat the Devils 2 days later. And I'm going to assume the Montreal Canadiens has COVID caused this game to be postponed. Yeah, because there's only 2 people that are out with COVID. Dallas Stars. For the Dallas Stars, they've won 2 of their 3 games, beating both the Florida Panthers and the Pittsburgh Penguins for an incredible performance, despite last year. However, they lost to the St. Louis Blues, but that's because the Blues are a lot better than they were last year. Detroit Red Wings lost 3 of their 4 games this week. However, they beat the Sharks, but lost to the Ducks twice, and they lost to the Los Angeles Kings. So they're starting to fail now, but they need to get to work. Edmonton Oilers have the most postponed games ever in a long time, other than the second NHL pause, which lasted anywhere from Christmas to New Year's. But out of that one game they did play this week, they lost to the Toronto Maple Leafs. So due to what I think, the Edmonton Oilers have caused themselves COVID. And now, because of that, their games are canceled again. Why is every Canadian team always getting COVID? Is it the weather, or is it the relegations? Who knows? Panthers won against the Flames and the Hurricanes. However, they lost to the Stars for some reason. Moving on to the Kings. The Kings have lost to the Nashville Predators. However, they beat the Rangers and the Red Wings, meaning that they have a on-track record right now. Minnesota Wild. Out of their games, the Minnesota Wild have... Tomorrow's game is postponed. Yesterday's game was also postponed. They beat the Washington Capitals and the Boston Bruins. So the Wild are on a roll. But let's see. Okay, it's not them. Then it's probably Winnipeg. It's Winnipeg and Edmonton. It's both of their faults. because they have COVID again. What are these franchises doing that is causing them to get COVID all the time? Because it almost seems like their 3-month immunity is not working for them. Unless if their quarantine protocols is longer than it is in the U.S. Montreal Canadiens. Let's just say they didn't even get to play a single game this week. So, for those fans in the city of Montreal, before you get to see a hockey game again, your city needs to get over COVID. Because I believe that they're not letting fans see the stadium either. They're not taking chances anymore because they've gotten COVID so many times that the Canadiens had enough and locked out all the fans from the stadium, and their problem is still not solved. Nashville Predators won all 3 of their games this week against the Cardinals, the Coyotes, Kings, and Gold Knights, meaning that they're doing fairly well. Moving on to the New Jersey Devils, who yesterday's game was postponed. Whose fault is it? It looks like it is the New Jersey Devils' fault, as they are the ones with the most COVID. However, out of the games they did play, they lost to the Boston Bruins and the Columbus Blue Jackets. However, they did beat the Columbus Blue Jackets 2 days earlier before they lost to them. Moving on to the New York Islanders. And if you remember by what I said earlier, the New York Islanders have COVID. But not much. So it looks like it could be Seattle. Is it Seattle? No, it looks like it's the New York Islanders must have COVID. Some other teams have some COVID, but not a lot. So because of that, they didn't get to play a single game this week because the Islanders have COVID. They were supposed to play the Kraken, the Canucks, the Oilers, and the Flames. However, the Oilers and the Flames games were canceled because those 2 teams had COVID. I don't know about Vancouver and Seattle, though. New York Rangers lost 2 of their 3 games they played this week. They won against the Ducks, lost against the Kings, and lost against the Golden Knights. So they got to get to work in order to get their strength back. Ottawa Senators. Look how many postponed games there is. Is it because of COVID? No. So I guess that confirms that the Seattle Kraken are out with COVID. Vancouver Canucks are also out with COVID. Moving on to the Flyers. The Flyers have lost all 3 games this week, losing to the Ducks, the Penguins, and the Sharks. And their game that they're supposed to play against the Hurricanes has been postponed because Philadelphia has COVID. Penguins won against the Blues and the Flyers. However, they lost to the Stars somehow. What's up, bruh? I broke the table. Oh, wait. That's in the chat. Moving on to the Sharks. With an impressive finish, not really impressive. They beat the Sabres and the Flyers, but they lost to the Red Wings. Before anything, they have to get better if they want to make the playoffs. Seattle Kraken. The Seattle Kraken had 3 of their games postponed. I think they're the ones with COVID, right? Well, it just says them too. It looks like it's probably not their fault. It's probably the Islanders' fault and the other Canadian team's fault. And because of that, they didn't get to play against the Islanders, the Ottawa Senators, or the Winnipeg Jets. However, they lost to the They did play a game against the Avalanche, but lost. St. Louis Blues. This round, they lost to the Penguins. They won against the Capitals and the Stars. So maybe the Blues are on a roll. Tampa Bay. More like Tampa, New Jersey COVID, as they don't get to play their game on the 10th because of the Devils. However, they won against the Blue Jackets and the Flames. However, they lost to the Bruins. Which means maybe Tampa's strength is slightly weakening. Maple Leafs. More like COVID Leafs because they also had COVID. But they look like they're recovering now, so they actually get to play games. However, in the games they did play, they lost to the Avalanche, but won against the Oilers. Canucks. More like COVID Canucks. As both of the games they were supposed to play this week were both postponed due to COVID. But that's because the Islanders and the Senators both had COVID themselves. So really, it's not their fault. So the Senators and the Islanders have caused them to not play hockey for a week. Las Vegas Golden Knights. This week they lost to the Nashville Predators and the Chicago Blackhawks. However, they won against the Rangers. But their strength is failing. They're usually super strong against other teams. However, up ahead in the road, their game against the Oilers and the Flames are both postponed because those two teams have COVID. Washington Capitals. Their game against the Montreal Canadiens was postponed because of COVID. And then they took on 3 losses in a row. Well, actually had more than that because they lost on January. So this time they lose to the Blues, the Wild, and the Bruins. And then finally the Winnipeg Jets. They only managed to play 2 games against. This one was against a win against the Coyotes and a loss against the Avalanche. However, because other teams have COVID, including the Seattle Kraken, Minnesota. Wait, Minnesota has COVID? There's no way. No, it's Winnipeg that has COVID. That got their game against the Seattle Kraken and the Minnesota Wild postponed. However, because Ottawa and Edmonton have COVID right now, those 2 games are postponed. But they still do play the Detroit Red Wings later on the 13th. And then the standings for each of the conferences. You have, in the East, Florida, Tampa Bay, and Toronto making the playoffs. In Metropolitan, Carolina, New York, and Washington making the playoffs. In the West, you got Nashville, St. Louis, and Colorado making the playoffs. Las Vegas, Anaheim, and Los Angeles making the playoffs. And then in the wild card spots, you have the Boston Bruins and the Pittsburgh Penguins taking those spots in the East. And in the West, it's the Minnesota Wild and the Calgary Flames. MLS. It looks like MLS season begins earlier than we expect. As you can see, their first couple of games begin on the 26th. So the MLS season now begins early. But that's probably because there was COVID last year. And moving on to the tables for the rest of the leagues. Liga MX season has finished. CF America has won. For Premier League, Manchester's in first. For French, Paris Saint-Germain, Bayern Munich in first. Internazionale in first. Real Madrid in first. All these teams clinched the bracket stage. In the Europa League, these guys clinched the bracket stage. Don't know when the bracket stage is going to happen. The Euro Cup went to Italy this year. World Cup is going to go to somebody. This was the previous one, actually. I don't think this is all of the conferences. So if you want to go into all the conferences, go to playoffstatuses.com. This is only, I believe this was last year's. Because the year before, because the group stage for this World Cup hasn't started yet. As we're still finishing up with the third round qualifiers, and the Oceania has not even started theirs yet, as they begin theirs in March for some reason. And that's basically it for huge sports talk this week. If you guys are excited for some more football, basketball, hockey, and soccer for those of you in Europe, and waiting on baseball because they don't know how to make decisions, click subscribe.